Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the C-Man. I want to welcome you to another edition of the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, and I want to welcome you back to my crib on a Monday. As you can see here, I've got my Empire Strikes Back glass, and inside of that glass there is this wonderful, delicious substance that I like to call a margarita. And I think everybody likes to call it margarita because that's what it is, and I'm an idiot. But I do love me a margarita, and I certainly love them on Mondays. And it's been a couple weeks. Had some personal things that kind of came up that kind of just made me have to reschedule a bunch of stuff. So we've been on hold, but we are back. I'm so excited because you know me. I love a good Margarita Monday, and I'm excited to welcome everybody back to the Margarita Monday Meetup podcast. And today I have a very special guest with me. Again, probably more special for me than you guys because he's my friend, but you know, hopefully he's your friend by the time we get to the end of this. This is a really, really good dude, man. Works for a shipping company. Has been working on the front lines during the pandemic in the warehouse, making sure that orders are getting out to people on the streets. So you should love this guy right away just for that. But besides that, he's a great dude. A lover of Kevin Smith. We met through our fandom of Kevin Smith with a group of people we like to call the Smod Squad. Really, really good dude. I'm very, very glad to have met him via the online worlds and Twitter. That's why those are the things that Twitter is good for. But he's also a 3D animator and is working on a special little thing that I think might talk about today. So you might want to stick around to see if Mike wants to spill the beans on what he's working on. I hope that I can get him to do that because pretty freaking cool. So without further ado, man, why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. We're getting ready to dive into this episode. I believe this is episode 9, if I do my math correctly, of the Margarita Monday Meetup podcast. And I am very, very pleased to welcome my good friend, Mr. Mike Driscoll. Mike, how are you doing, buddy?
Good. How you doing, Corey?
I'm good, man. I'm just...
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers. Yes, what are you drinking? That's always my first question on the show. What do we got today?
This is a spiked Arnold Palmer. I'm not a really big fan of margaritas.
It's all right. Not everybody is.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a new name for it. I'm leaning towards a 9 iron to the head.
Oh, okay.
Depending on how much alcohol I put in.
I was going to say, you loaded that bad boy up.
Yeah.
Wait, you know us, man. We don't discriminate on what you drink on the show. We just hope that you bring a cocktail with you, unless you're someone who can't handle their cocktails, then please, if you ever come on the show and you're one of those people, don't drink a cocktail. That's bad. But I feel like you know how to handle your liquor, Mike, so I'm glad you are partaking with me.
I love to partake in the liqueur that is alcohol every once in a while.
Yeah, so
I will do that again.
There you go. Before we get going, we got some fun stuff to talk about. As I said, Mike is a 3D animator, so we are going to talk about some 3D animation stuff. And we're going to start with the most recent 3D animation movie out there to kind of springboard us off into the animation conversation. But before we get into all of that, without spoiling what your secret thing is, why don't you just kind of let everybody at home know who you are, my man?
Well, I am a 3D animator. I've been doing it for about 10 years now. I work for several studios, nothing well-known like Pixar, DreamWorks, something like that. But I will be working on something really, really special. And hopefully, if you're a Kevin Smith fan, you'll love it as much as I do. And this has been a project, passion project for quite some time. And hopefully, things will come through. I think I drank too much. I think
that's why we call it a 9 iron to the head, folks.
Come through fruition. And get some legs, and we can really get this project going.
Yeah, and everybody at home,
not?
Yeah, why not? That's why.
Why not?
That's why I like this guy. Is things like that, man. Why not? That's a great phrase to live by. You have to understand. Me and Mike talked for like an hour about no fun stuff. We didn't talk about any fun stuff before this show happened, but we certainly were enjoying our beverages while we were talking. So pardon us if we're a little bit more loose than we normally are here, but that's what we welcome at this show.
Well, the world needs a little bit loose now.
It's true. We're at a place where like you just need to take a break from reality every once.
Absolutely.
It's extremely important for mental health. For people who are working at home, myself, I'm doing that. So I understand what working from home can kind of cause, but people that are out there, make sure you get a little bit of a mental break, man. It's so important. And that's why we like having this podcast. It's one of the reasons I've tried to keep this thing going during the quarantine, or even some of the more recent stuff that's going on in the news. As times get bad, man, sometimes you need something that's not bad to look to. So I hope that's what I'm doing. I hope that's what people are taking away from this. We obviously, me and Mike, because we were talking about all that serious stuff before, we understand everything that's going on. We obviously are taking everything that's going on in the world right now real serious. But even by the time we got to the end of that hour, we're like, all right, I think it's time to talk about something fun, right? Like, let's get into some good stuff. But what I was going to say is everybody at home right now must hate me because I know what the secret project is, and it's super cool. So you better stick around if you want to know, because I think Mike's going to spill the beans, and it should be super exciting. Hold on 1 second. Go on. Okay, that's cool. Sorry, parents are going to buy furniture. But yeah, so that is super cool. I can't wait for you guys to hear about that. I'm very excited for Mike, and we will get there. But like I said, we are going to start. If I'm going to have a 3D animator on, someone who knows this shit, like I watch a lot of movies. I take a lot of things away from movies. I love animated everything. But, I don't have a 3D animator eye. This guy has 3D animator eye. That's why he's here. So we're going to get there. And I thought the perfect way to kind of start talking about animation, and, I think we'll kind of cover it in a general sense, but SCOOB, what was a movie, probably the most recent animation movie to come out. Me and Mike talked about it a couple weeks ago when it did come out. I saw it. I get busy and I haven't had a chance to talk about it, and I obviously now I have my review up, so hopefully you guys are checking that out if you want to. I believe you can see it right here. I digress. Actually, no, that's probably wrong. It's probably maybe it is up here. I have no idea. The screen's different now. But I was like, I rewatched. I was like, well, Mike, let's talk about SCOOB, because one, I want to just get. I would like to see what you think about the movie, because I think as a Scooby-Doo fan, it's an interesting movie to watch. I enjoyed the film, but not as much as I would have enjoyed it if it had been like a legitimate Scooby-Doo movie. But I thought the animation was really, really tight on this one. And for me, I thought the animation here was like a piece of 3D animation that was executed like in a better way than I've seen it in the past. As far as like, I think a lot of what Pixar and Disney and Illumination are doing is trying to build these 3D animated worlds that look really, really, really hyper realistic. Obviously the characters continue to look like cartoons to a degree, but like Frozen, perfect example. You watch the new Frozen, man. When Elsa tries to run up that water, it's like she's running into the real ocean. What was cool with SCOOB is that background stuff is really good. Like, it looks legitimate, but it still has a bit of that cartooniness to it. And some of the animation mechanics inside the movie, I had mentioned to you, Mike, one of the Dynamite scenes where he kind of bugs out. You get that classic animation where like you're seeing things spin around and act the way they would in a 2D animated movie, but it's the 3D version of it, and it looks so good. But what I need to know is, am I crazy, Mike, or am I seeing like are you seeing what I'm seeing, or am I nuts?
No, I completely agree with you. What they hit good. They hit very well. As far as the animation goes, it's very much the 3D version of 2D back when. And they did it very well. The storyline I have a lot of problems with. Nothing can be perfect. When you see the mixed results on Rotten Tomatoes or whatnot, I get it. I totally understand.
Yeah.
They try again when you talk about world building. It's almost like the DCU version of Hanna-Barbera. And I'm like,
all right, that's fair.
I'm like, you hit on some and you missed on the others. Like, they brought in Dick Dastardly, and I'm like, oh, that's a villain. I get it, no problem, and I'm with you. And then you throw in Captain Caveman. I'm like, I got nothing. Why is he here again?
Good.
But the animation, like you brought up, going back to what you were talking about before, they did very well.
And like you said, like, I think they executed those individual elements really well. All the Dick Dastardly stuff in the movie, specifically like the Dick Dastardly and Muttley stuff that you get in the movie, if you're an old school Hanna-Barbera fan, like, that shit hits you right here, and you're like, oh god, they nailed that. When Captain Caveman comes up, actually, it's funny. One of the things I always think is interesting with these movies is why is there always the need to bring names to animated film rather than bringing the people who typically voice animated film to the big screen. I mean, there are a lot of actors that have voice actors that have done these voices for years that could have been brought in.
Well,
However,
I think Scooby was the original voice actor, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So it's I believe, I'm not sure who was first because it's a combination of two guys. One guy passed in 1997. I think that's the original guy.
Right.
The guy who voices Scooby has voiced Scooby like for almost as long. Like I think it was a combination of the two guys. He also he's the main voice of Fred, which is like one of those things where it's like you have the guy who's always voiced Freddy and Scooby voicing Scooby in the movie. Why not have him voice Freddy? You know, like sometimes that stuff kind of bothers me, and it's weird. I actually think, oh no, what was his name? What's Zac Efron? I think Zac Efron actually did a really, really good job as Freddy. Like I think he of the famous voices that are in this cast, I think he did it the best. You know, but like at the same time, like when Tracy Morgan's voice came out of Captain Caveman, I was like, oh well, that's just perfect. Like that's a match that deserves each other.
See, and I didn't think that way.
Oh, see, I mean, I could be wrong because it's been a long time since I've seen Captain Caveman, and I just enjoyed Tracy so much. So when I hear it, I'm like, oh yes, and Tracy's voice suits this look.
But again, like I didn't find it way because Tracy. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big Tracy.
Well, he sounds like Tracy.
Right. But exactly my point. He sounds like Tracy, but
yeah,
he doesn't sound like Captain Caveman. And maybe look, I'm talking about a 40-year-old. It's nostalgia for me. And when I see my son watching it, he loves it. You know. So I can enjoy it through his eyes. But again, when I hear Tracy, it takes me out of Captain Caveman.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, when you take that Captain Caveman, then I'm like, well, I'm kind of focused. It separates the movie from me.
Yeah, no, I think of the voices that are in the movie, that's the one that probably stands out the most. Is like right away recognizable. Like, oh, that's Tracy Morgan. I just personally, I love Tracy so much. The idea of him doing Captain Caveman, I was like, haha, that's funny. Yes, I don't think it's quite spot on.
Right.
But like I said, I think Zac Efron he's really close to hitting that Fred groove. I think better than anybody else in Mystery Inc. The thing that drove me crazy about SCOOB, and I love Will Forte, and I think Will Forte put forth a decent effort. Like, I remember watching the trailers going, oh man, this is awesome. Like Will Forte, he's right in that lane, man. He's going to crush this. I think they just put every single moment where he was hitting Shaggy right on the head because he hits it every once in a while. I think all of those were in the trailer and there's a lot less of that in the movie.
Yeah.
And I just sat there going like, look, you can't bring back Casey Kasem. He's not alive. But why did nobody call Matthew Lillard? Like the whole time.
Do the movie.
Like I literally I watched the movie. I watched it today again just to kind of refresh myself. I actually enjoyed it a lot more the second time.
Okay.
But the entire time I was watching it the first time, after that like opening 20 minutes, the opening 20 minutes of the movie is so good. The pup named Scooby-Doo stuff was awesome. Outside of that, I didn't like that they gave Shaggy a kid voice that didn't sound like Shaggy, right? Because Casey Kasem still voiced, kid Shaggy when they did pup named Scooby-Doo. But all of that stuff worked so well. Then, oh, by the way, folks, spoilers, if you don't know. I mentioned that I did a review. That's the non-spoiler. We're going to spoil the shit out of anything we talk about. That's how this podcast works. We don't not spoil things. So I should have put that on Front Street. We're going to spoil it. And I think
out for quite a while. Is it
it's been probably about a month. But like the thing that I think I love the most in the movie is as you transition out of Pup Named Scooby-Doo to the current age of the Mystery Inc. gang, they did the 3D animated version of the old school Scooby-Doo opening. I don't think it's quite shot for shot, but it's like 95% shot for shot the old Scooby-Doo version. I didn't like the choice they took on the music. I didn't think it quite fit, but I didn't give a shit because I was like, oh my gosh, there's the robot guy. Oh my gosh, that's like the creepy, big, lurking lurch kind of guy. Seeing those things in 3D animation in the sequence of the original Scooby opening, I was at that point in the movie, I was like, yes, this is everything I want this movie to be. And then the Blue Falcon shows up. And while it's awesome, like I geeked out the whole movie as, you know, DD Skies comes in, and then Blue Falcon and Dynamite and, you know, Dick Dastardly and Muttley, and then all the shit. I mean, you're seeing like Kung Fu Hui and all the crazy shit. Like the arcade is literally every single Hanna-Barbera character you've ever seen in your entire life. Right next to like the one restaurant that they're hanging out at the diner, Mr. Peebles' Pet Shop. Like that stuff, I loved all of it when it came up. Geeked out every single time because I was like, oh my God, we're going to go back to when cartoons were good.
Yes.
I don't mean to offend the younger audience members out there. There are some wins out there. I'm a SpongeBob fan. There are things that have come past my generation that have added. But I'm sorry, you guys don't know what Saturday morning cartoons are. You don't know what good cartoons are. And like the idea of launching, and as long as they actually, if Warner Brothers pulls it off and actually executes it, I think it would soften the blow on what this movie turned into. But if they actually build a 3D Hanna-Barbera universe and start making Hanna-Barbera either cartoons again or movies, whether it's like I think this stuff, use this animation style in like a Netflix series, like that would be awesome. But as a hardcore Scooby-Doo fan who hasn't seen Scoob on the big screen in a while, I was really hoping for a Scooby-Doo movie, and this turned it into more of a Hanna-Barbera movie. I think it's a great Hanna-Barbera movie. I think it's a great family movie. Like you said, like your kids will love this movie.
Yeah.
It's bright. The animation's fun. The action is cool. And, you know, the story is easy enough to follow. And look, it, like I said, watching it, I'm going to let you talk in a minute, Mike. I'm on a roll.
I've just been nodding. Yes, you're right.
But as watching it today, I was like, you know, it does execute a lot of the things you would see in a Scooby-Doo movie. Like a lot of the Scooby-Doo movies actually take you into the real world of sci-fi stuff where it's not a mask coming off of an imposter. It is actually like a ritual taking place, or, you know, some of the supernatural stuff. So like that element of the movie, by the time you get to that in the third act, I was like, that's not too far off the mark. It's just like, it's been so long since I've seen the Mystery Inc. crew together.
Yes.
I wanted to see them do everything together. And while I know Shaggy and Scooby will go off on side tangents, they're typically short side tangents that come back to the main group. And it took the whole movie to get the whole group back together again. And it was like, I mean, they make fun, like they point out things. Like there's a scene where they're like, Daphne, Fred, and Velma are like in prison, and Daphne's like jumping around on the chair, and she's like, well, if Scooby and Shaggy were here, they would do something stupid that would open up a trap door. I wanted to see that. Like, I thought it was cool. Like, oh, that's a nice nod because that's how it works. But I was hoping to see that stuff in the movie. Yes. I think once you made Dick Dastardly the overall villain, that's when it started to steer away. And then adding in Blue Falcon and Dynamite, like as cool as it was to see them in the movie, they're in the movie a lot, and they're the ones that are hanging out with Shaggy and Scoob. And I didn't like that they almost made Shag and Scoob not be friends. Like there were just elements there that I was like, come on, don't go there. This is my first time back with these guys.
Yeah, it was almost too obvious. As soon as they put the collar on him, I was like, oh, that's going to play into something.
Yep.
You know, it was almost like you were hitting them, hitting this is the same trope we hit every single time. And you're like, I get it. You know, you're right about the beginning. The first 20 minutes, I absolutely loved. I like the meeting between Shaggy and Scooby. You know, there was a little bit, again, if I have to nitpick, you know, again, this is just me.
Go ahead, you can nitpick.
Being a 40-year-old, and you know, they were in California instead of Coolsville.
That's fair.
You know, the whole trope of I'm lonely, so I'll look at my iPod and stuff like that, or my phone.
Yeah.
And like, you know, you do that, and I'm like, I get it. It's been done. But again, the first 20 minutes, how the crew meet up, and the whole gang and the whole sequence of the intro, beautifully done. I agree.
Also, smart move by Warner Brothers.
Where you lost me. I was just like, they don't explain. Like they explain, Blue Falcon is not Blue Falcon anymore. It's his son, and Blue Falcon is retired. But they don't explain Dynamite. You know,
he's just the same.
But again, Dynamite in the past cartoons he was a bumbling, you know, robot.
Yeah.
He was the comic relief. If you gave me some sort of Iron Man Mach 23, and you gave me like this version of Dynamite, and then this version, and then you gave me the history of Dynamite in one scene, I would understand it better.
That's fair.
You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, okay, now you have the original Dynamite, and here, and this is the upgrades, and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, okay, cool. I see the reason why. It just seemed like you took Blue Falcon and you switched roles, and I'm like, for the sake of switching roles. And that's me, that's nitpicking.
No, and it's a completely fair point because it's accurate. And it's one of the things that's weird with this movie because like watching the movie, like that relationship works if you don't know any of this history. If you're a kid, that stuff works. I thought Ken Jeong did a really good job with Dynamite, but it's not what you expected Dynamite to be in that instance. Where it's like they kind of created something that works for a new version of it. So like, you know, I'm gonna be happy just because it exists. But yeah, like it doesn't quite hit. And that's, again, it's one of those, like when you start bringing in different talent, you're looking for specific things out of that talent. It doesn't always mesh up, you know, with what you've known from where things came from.
Right. I like I said, it's just where, again, one scene, 10 seconds, not even. But if you hit that where it's like, oh, this is the upgrades of Dynamite, I'm like, okay, I get it, you know, because you're giving credence to your history, but you're upgrading. I'm like, done.
Yeah, that or like, or, you know, or even just the fact that like Brian is a bumbling idiot. It forced Dynamite to be the more on the ball character.
Sure,
that could make sense. You know, and it could play into that joke when he's like, we really, 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 really. Oh man, no, let me finish. Really, really miss your dad. Like it could play into that because it's like, I didn't have to be the smart guy back in the day. I had just got to go along on adventures.
Sure.
You know, but you don't, like you said, and that's actually a really good point because I didn't even think about that. But yeah, like you don't get to see what gets you to that progression where it's like, okay, well, why is the character different?
Yeah, I think they flipped it just for the sake of flipping it. And I'm like, it kind of like it hurt me. It hurt me a little bit because, you know, I'm nostalgic. I'm watching this with my son, and he's loving it. He's like, oh, Scooby, I know him. But if I go back and I said, hey, let's go on YouTube and watch Dynamite and Blue Falcon, he wouldn't recognize them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It would be a little bit more confusion. But again, hindsight is always 20/20. Explain to me, for the love of cartoons, why was Simon Cowell in the movie? I don't understand it.
Well,
relevant.
No, but it's for what they set up, which again I have issue with, like trying to force a wedge into the team right out the gate. I was like, come on, guys. But it's a total nod to what the old Scooby-Doo movies used to do. He had like that whole series of movies where you'd have famous people that were semi-obscure famous people that would come on. You know, you'd have like the Globetrotters, or, you know, so it was like, that was what I took from it
for some reason.
Yeah, that's what I took from it. It was like, we're gonna make a nod to the fact that like famous people used to, or like almost famous people would show up inside Scooby-Doo movies.
You know what? Maybe that was how I took it. Of too much content, but I don't think my son would recognize. Well, he didn't recognize Simon Cowell at all because it's not an adult. He doesn't watch American Idol. He's not, you know, that's not what he watches.
Forget that show. Watch America's Got Talent.
Got Talent. Whatever.
That's prime time Simon Cowell, man. He's so much nicer.
Like, he wouldn't know if you're focusing your target audience, and you put on this person, and you're like, well, I don't know who that person is. He has no connection to it. It kind of falls off a little bit.
It's that really, really tight rope you got to walk, right? Like you're playing for. I think this movie is playing for the new audience. We're trying to get kids on board. We're going to give you a Scooby-Doo movie because there's enough Scooby-Doo content where kids would recognize who Scooby-Doo is. That's your way into introducing you to all these other things in the Hanna-Barbera universe. So now if those movies come out, they can go, oh, I know Dick Dastardly. He was here. But at the same time, they're also trying to play to the audience that knows all these things, which it's a tight rope that they didn't quite nail walking across because, like I said, you do a bunch of things decently in the movie that certainly got me excited for like the Hanna-Barbera stuff, but like I was here for a Scooby-Doo movie. I wanted a more traditional Scooby-Doo movie.
Yeah, there's no mystery involved because you already know the villain. You know, if Dick Dastardly,
Was
although
Simon Cowell?
he does the whole disguise thing every once in a while, but you already know the villain. If he came at the very end and he's like Dick Dastardly, oh my god, and I would be like, oh, that's brilliant,
That's
brilliant,
fair.
love it. You know, and they go into space, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, they've never really gone into space. Again, we're talking about two adults critiquing a child's movie, and it's just like, okay, how much nitpicking can we do without being told douchebags?
But at the same time, the amount of if you haven't seen Scoob, or you've seen Scoob and you weren't paying attention, and you're a Hanna-Barbera fan, pay attention to the background. The strip in California. Look at all the stores. Look at all the signage. You are gonna see shit that you recognize. And I won't spoil all the Easter eggs for you guys because that's kind of fun stuff to watch. Like the not a spoiler, but like a hint. There is a Easter egg tied into the bowling alley that Scooby and Shaggy go to at one point. And it was like cool when on the second watch I picked up what the name of it was because I was paying more attention. I was like, oh fuck, that's cool, man. Like what a cool nod to like that person or whatever. That stuff is everywhere. And then there's a moment where Shaggy and Scooby are running from Dick and a bunch of these little robot things that are either really, really freaking adorable or super terrifying. But they run in, right? Like the cute version of them, they were so adorable. You're like, oh, look how nice he is. And then next thing you know, they're shooting lasers and they got chainsaws and
they look like part scorpion. But that was, again, you talking into marketing. Like how can we make these into toys?
Yeah, exactly.
And it was just like, but again, sometimes it's so obvious.
Yeah.
Again, from adults, it's so obvious what they're trying to do, but for kids,
for
like,
sure.
I want that toy.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's almost like they're hitting you right in the head. You're like, oh, or my wallet, let's put that way, because my son will, like, I want that. And like, okay.
Yes, we got to do it. Quarantine.
Yeah, tell me about it.
It's probably harder during quarantine to say no, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, how do you entertain them without them driving you crazy?
Yeah.
Because they're home all the time.
Yeah.
But you make do. That guy only got one.
As we all do, right? As I was saying, they go into an arcade, and literally the entire arcade is nothing but Hanna-Barbera Easter eggs. Like almost every single Hanna-Barbera character that I can think of is referenced at some point or another in the movie, whether it's in the background, whether it's the sound that like an animal makes that makes you go, oh, I know what that is. Or like that stuff was that shit made up to a degree the fact that it wasn't a really great Scooby-Doo movie, because I was just enjoying going, oh my gosh, they could bring this out. Like it made me excited for the future, but ultimately it would have been more enjoyable to have all those things in there and deliver a really top-end Scooby movie. But
yeah,
you know what? I'll never be mad as long as
they try to do a DCU version of Scooby-Doo. They try to world build, and when
100%.
Yeah, then when you try to world build, always go Marvel. Take it step by step. This could have been a really good Scooby-Doo movie and be a Scooby-Doo movie. That's exactly what you got. Be a really good Scooby-Doo movie.
Yeah,
and that's your jumping off point. Then you hit the Dick Dastardly. Don't get me wrong, I love Dick Dastardly in this movie.
Yeah.
But you hit them in the end, I'm on board. Give me another one. Now I'm craving it. Now I'm like, it's that guy. Who are you going to introduce next time?
Yeah.
Well, and it's extend the universe. I think they try to cram so much, and it kind of just fell apart a little bit.
Yeah. I wonder if like people at Warner Brothers feel like they're only gonna get one shot at these things. You know what I mean? Like clearly Warner Brothers, and specifically Warner Brothers DC, has learned from what they did at the beginning of the DCU. I think the back half of the films that have come out from them have been far stronger than what we got at the beginning, right? Like Aquaman was 100% an Aquaman specific movie. Shazam was 100% Shazam specific movie. There are elements in those movies that are world building and things that they reference where you're like, oh, cool, we're in the same world. Like they referenced Superman, or, he referenced, the Justice League movie. Like, cool. I think they've started to figure things out more. you'd think that philosophy would apply then to everything that you do. And for me, it felt like we're only going to get one shot at potentially launching this Hanna-Barbera universe, even though like it's their property. And I think if you made one or two movies, even if they don't crush at the box office, they'll do well enough because there's enough people in the 30 to 60-year-old age range that'll be like, oh man, things from when I was young. Yeah, I'll go watch that.
Yeah.
But it felt like they were like, we only have one shot to do this, so let's set the entire universe up with this one movie. And I'm not going to lie, I feel like they executed that aspect of it way better than they did with any of the other things that they've done as far as universe building. Like, they really, after this movie, you could do all those solo movies and they all just exist in the same place. Just don't do it with Scooby-Doo.
Well, Scooby-Doo is their version of Batman, you know? And once you go to the well so many times, you're like, okay, because you never see okay, I shouldn't say you never see, but a Yogi Bear cartoon movie, they'll throw it every once in a while. I think they did the live action.
Yeah, they did live action twice, I believe.
But it's forgettable,
Oh, for sure.
But that's not your mainstay. Your mainstay is Scooby-Doo. Well, then make a Scooby-Doo movie. You've made two live action ones, which I'm like, not for nothing, I really do enjoy them.
I enjoy both of them a lot, yeah.
Everyone fits their role, and like, great, I'm on board, and they still hold up, and they still make me laugh. They still make my son laugh, and I'm like, great. If you kind of did the same thing and kept it small and then branch out instead of branching out and then make it small again, you're like, and then you kind of lost me again. Hindsight, we're critiquing something that.
Well, like we said, like I said before, like I think the movie fits the structure of what we've seen Scooby-Doo movies do, right? Like they're presenting you things that you're familiar with. But inside the movies, unlike the TV episodes, the things that are happening aren't fake or a trick. A lot of times they are real. So like I was cool with the whole concept of like Scooby's lineage going all the way back to Alexander the Great's dog, and like opening up like all of that worked. Or rather, all of that I think could have worked really well still as the story if you would have just kept the group together the whole movie. Like rather than inserting, I think if you don't insert Blue Falcon and Dynamite and Dee Dee Skies, maybe that's part of your like opening. Like maybe you show them at the beginning, or maybe you show them at the end of the movie, like after they've solved the mission, like all of a sudden like the blue light like brings them up to the like after. Cool. But I think if you take that element out and you leave Scooby and Shaggy with the group, and you could even separate them, you could separate them at the carnival. You could still have Dick Dastardly be the bad guy. I think if you maybe hid that a little bit, it might work better. But I even think having that up front still could have played. I just think it was as enjoyable as moments in that. Like I said, the performances are like, I think Wahlberg does a good job with what they give him. I really liked what Ken Jeong did. But like, I think if you take that element out of the movie, it would have been easier for it to be a Scooby movie because you could have kept the team together. And then you could have been like, we're going to tell you who the bad guy is right out the whatever. I could buy that. And then that little joke they do at the end with the mask pulling, that still plays. I just think it would have felt more like a Scooby-Doo movie where you're referencing things and bringing in a little bit of the world building rather than like, hey, we're going to give you like 20 minutes of awesome Scooby-Doo stuff, and then it's just got to be Hanna-Barbera. And then individual moments. There are moments in the movie that are so classic Scooby-Doo. Like every once in a while, like you said, when they nail it, they nail it. There's a lot of, they piled a lot in there.
Scooby-Doo has always been a very small environment. And when I mean small environment, they go to this haunted house, or a haunted amusement park or whatnot, and it's within that little universe, a little nugget, okay? And then they see this bad guy, or they see several people, and they're like, okay, who's the bad guy? Who has the mask on? And this is going to be Old Man Smithers or whatnot.
Yeah.
And then you would take that off, and it would be Dick Dastardly. And again, you take it small, and then you build it out. You start shoving so much in there, and again, it doesn't become a Scooby-Doo movie. Which again, it's as a nostalgia freak, let me down. But for my son, who's looking for through fresh eyes, he wants to explore, you know. So when you explore, it could work, you know. But again, once he explores and he goes into YouTube and sees, oh, this is Captain Caveman and this is a Blue Falcon. They're not the same, but I like this version better.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You might lose on one, but you might gain on another. But if again, we're critiquing a movie.
Well, and like I said,
they could have got both at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and look, like I said, if they follow through and they actually build a Hanna-Barbera universe off of this movie, and then if they do a Scooby-Doo sequel that's like a more traditional Scooby movie that's not trying to do this massive world building, and they pull off launching a Hanna-Barbera universe, I think a lot of the things that might just tick at you at the back of your head become that blow becomes a lot softer, because you're like, you know what? You gambled and you pushed everything, which I didn't love, but it worked. And now we have a Hanna-Barbera universe. Then you have to be ecstatic about what they did with Scoob, because you're like, fuck, you pulled it off.
Okay,
if they pull it off, I think I will I will have less issue going back and watching this Scoob movie, knowing that they were able to launch something that brings all these characters back into the world.
Okay, now let me ask you a question.
Okay.
So we both agree that if they went from small to big, it would have been better. How do you go big back to small without going much bigger? You know what I'm saying? Where you've already expanded the universe and introduced certain characters, how do you not become greedy and saying, well, we're going to just shove we shove this much more? Well, we're shoving everything in there. People characters that don't, oh, why is I don't know, grape ape is in there or something like that. You're like, oh, just because, because we need this big giant, purple ape, or geez, I can't even remember any Huckleberry Hound. Why is he in there? Just because we got a world built. So again, do you go in retrospect where it's like, okay, now if you notice in the first 20 minutes, they kind of just fast forward. They were kids, they went on these adventures, and then they
kind of set it up back. They set it up very similar to what they do. Yeah, well, they did something that was very similar to what Dora the Explorer did, where it was like the way they handled the storytelling early made everything that we've ever gotten previously canon to some degree. Because they showed you, it was like, hey, they were together at Pup Named Scooby-Doo. This is their first meeting. That means all those episodes of Pup Named Scooby-Doo fall within their real reality. Then they advance them up to, the way I take it, they advance them up to adults through the Scooby-Doo opening, which now tells me it's like all those adventures that they went on, those are canon. Those happen to all these characters.
All right.
That's the way I like to look at it. Dora did it point blank. It was all of the things we used to do literally happened.
I was very much surprised about Dora.
Dude, that movie was so here. For those that are frequent with this programming, side tangents all the time. I love them. And I want to take this Dora tangent because that movie was so good. We did a lot of foster care when I was younger, and infant foster care. So we had a lot of kids come in and out of the house. So that kiddie programming was on all the time. I watched Blue's Clues. I watched Dora the Explorer. I watched all these programmings. They weren't made for me, but they were enjoyable enough where it's I'm a giant child. So if I'm watching it with my kid's sister or whatever, I can laugh along with it because I'm that's cool, man. They're teaching kids Spanish. That's awesome.
Right.
And then they make a live action Dora the Explorer. I'm just a movie nut. I'm obviously going to go watch it, but I'm not going to watch the movie as a Dora fan. But I have all that Dora experience, and they played into that where it was shit, now I am a Dora the Explorer fan, damn it. And then that big dance number at the end, we were at a point in the world where a lot of bullshit was going on, and the idea of coming together was not a thing.
Right.
And the end of that movie is this just giant dance number where everybody's wearing different colors, everybody physically is different colors, and I'm just sitting there sobbing, going, this is how the world should be. Why can't we have this? Oh, that movie was so good.
Yeah, Dora's. When I was watching that movie, I had my reserves because I wasn't a Dora Explorer. It was out of my element, but I caught the idea. It was okay, can you say map or whatever it was? But they were the movie was very self-aware of what it was.
Yeah.
And I could appreciate that, where I'm yeah, that's pretty cool. The only thing I had a problem with that was the little fox, swiper guy. I was like, but again, me nitpicking. I was just like, it just didn't fit with, I got it.
No, it didn't fit with I understand what you're saying, because they made the cartoon show and the way that Dora acts in the movie realistic, to the point where it's like, because she grew up by herself and like the only friend she really had was a pet monkey, and her cousin at some point eventually came into it. Like, that was it. If Diego wasn't around, Dora's by herself. So when you flash into the live action movie, well, Dora's now a teenager, but she let's go to she talks the way Dora talks in the movie or in the TV show. So she talks that way because she doesn't know how to interact with people.
Right.
Genius stuff. So but you make the fact that she was a cartoon realistic in the way that she acts. Yeah, it's unbelievably unrealistic to have a talking fox and a talking monkey. But I love the shit out of it, man. I was like, the fact that you have Danny Trejo in there, just like that.
For me, I bought the monkey, and I was like, yeah, I guess the monkey.
Because it's Danny.
Cute. The fox, I think you could have went real and just have him swipe stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. But I love that it was actually Swiper, because then that was the confirmation of all confirmations that the television show is legitimately canon, because there is a cartoon fox that steals things.
That was the only thing. I really enjoyed the movie. I was very, very much surprised.
Yeah, dude, it was a total shock. It's so funny, the amount of people I have talked to after I saw that movie. I was like, you know what you should check out if you got some time on your hands? Watch the Dora the Explorer movie. As a 34-year-old grown man talking to people roughly in that age category, the looks I would get from people sometimes would be like, Corey, we understand that you're like still a kid and you like kid things, but like Dora's for like 3-year-olds, man. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, go see. I understand what Dora the Explorer was, but Dora the Explorer could totally play to adults the way that they did. And it I was so happy. Like, it made me so happy to see them pull off something that I never thought they would actually pull off.
See, now I had an excuse. I had my 7-year-old. So you're like, I watched Dora Explorer. Sure. You got a kid. I actually really enjoyed it.
I told you my excuse. I had small children in the house all the time, so I watched this shit. So like, I had a legitimate tie to the show to want to see what they would do with a live action version.
I don't know, dude. I could watch My Little Pony, but I'm certainly not going to watch it on my own and say, I'm going to movies.
There's nothing wrong with My Little Pony.
I'm not saying anything wrong with it.
It's pretty good.
But a grown man going to see a My Little Pony movie, you're going to get some looks.
I mean, it's fair.
Unless you're a brony.
You know what? I would probably get looks way more now than say 6 months ago. The beard, the beard factor is a totally different game. I haven't been to any children movies because the movies have been shut down for almost 4 months. True. I'll probably get worse looks when I go to kid movies now because I live for children's television. I just love I've dated people who hate the fact that I can't let go of my childhood, but I'm like, fuck you, you're not fun anymore. Like you've just given up on fun and creativity. Like my mom thinks it's funny that I still watch adult. Like she doesn't give a shit that I watch cartoons, but she's like, Corey, your cartoon should not curse. I was like, yeah, but like Rick and Morty's fucking genius, man.
Have you not seen the Venture Brothers, Mom? Come on.
Oh my gosh. While we're on our tangent and before we get back to 3D animation, do you gotta take that?
Yeah. Hold on.
Okay, go ahead. Well, Mike, I'm not. Thank God your fucking phone rang, man. Because if your phone didn't ring, I don't know if I would have stopped talking about Dora the Explorer. And even though there is animation in there, the special effects CGI shit, which is animation, that's not the animation we want to talk about. We want to talk about 3D animation, which is what the SCOOB jump off point was. It's what your expertise is, and I just as someone who appreciates animation. The thing I love about the current wave of movies that we've been getting in the 3D animated realm is, one, it feels like there's a legit competition going on. Like, I feel like every time a new studio drops an animated movie, they're trying to raise that bar to get back up. Like Pixar drops a movie and then Illumination drops something that does something where you're like, wow, that was really cool. And then Disney comes back and does something, you're like, shit, that's better than what that was. And then, like it's not just like the two bigs, it's not just Universal and Disney and what they're doing with their animation departments. It's like everybody who's playing ball in the animation world is like amping up that technology, and to just see where we've come from Toy Story to Toy Story 4. Like I looked at a bunch of like side-by-side comparisons of like, and like when you throw Toy Story on with no perspective, right? Like it's the middle of the day, oh man, I'm gonna throw Toy Story on. It still looks great. I saw it, I caught it, I don't, it was somewhere, it might have been at the drive-in, they might have had a Toy Story playing when I was there one night. But like I've definitely seen it recently, like on the big screen. It still looks good until you put it up to an image of like Toy Story 4 and you're like, holy shit, like the leaps and bounds that 3D animation has made, I just find so visually appealing and striking and impressive. And the way that they're able to push each other. And like I said, that balance of like the super high realism and the idea of having realistic looking cartoons, like with what we got with SCOOB. So as someone who is a pro in this world, you've built animated things. What has it been like to watch the evolution of 3D animation?
Well, I'm glad you brought up like Toy Story, because that's what really started it all. You did have Pixar doing their little shorts like a Tintin and whatnot, but it hit the ground running with Toy Story. It was something we've never seen before, and then we've graduated and evolved to, like you said, Toy Story 4, and then you hit Illumination. And I'm sorry, like the peak right now is the Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah,
mwah, mwah. Oh my god!
I'm like, you look at that animation, I'm like, can you even bring it into the conversation of 3D animation? You're like, yeah, you fucking can, because it's like, it is an unbelievable blending of like the way, like I love how SCOOB looks like 2D animation in 3D form. Like Spider-Verse is a legit combination of all of it.
Yeah,
and
it's
mind-blowing shit.
Such a fantastic. You know what? It's not even a movie. It's a film. Give it its due. This is between a movie and a film. This is just a plain masterpiece. You put that anywhere on pause and literally take a snapshot, and you can hang that up on your wall.
Yeah, dude.
It's gorgeous.
Unbelievable. Like the way they, and it's one of those things where like deep down in my gut, like, the Solo movie was fine. I didn't think it was necessary. I didn't think it was terrible. Like there's a popcorn flick. But then Spider-Verse came out and I'm like, damn it. Like, I love you, Ron Howard, and you did a fine enough job getting this movie to the finish line. But like, shit, I would like to see what Lord and Miller were working on. Because the way those guys' brains work, sure as hell ain't the way like you would think, like to incorporate in individual frames, like not multiple, like one frame where comic book shit pops up, and it's like you blink and you miss it, but if your eyes open, even though it's just a split second, you catch it, and that just split second of it adding like that, it just adds this pop to it where it's like, oh man, it hits all the things that a comic book fan wants in a comic book movie, like the backgrounds being blurred a lot of the time and out of focus, and not out of focus because the camera's out of focus because it was drawn to look out of focus. That's how comic books worked back in the day. Like that's how you built your backgrounds, to then incorporate like the like when you hit things, you get like, or the spider sense and the color, like, oh my God, everything about that movie. I cannot wait for the second one. Like, oh, give it to me now.
Yeah, it's almost kind of intimidating where Spider-Verse is so good. How do you top it? I don't know how do you do it, because it's that good. It should have won every single award. I don't care if it was Best Actress. Yeah. Give it to him. Give it to that movie, because it was that.
I don't know about the individual acting award.
No, every single award. I don't care. It was, this is a documentary. It's not a documentary. We're giving it to Spider-Verse. Every single one. It was that good.
I'm not mad.
There's not one thing. Like we were nitpicking freaking SCOOB. Can't do it on Spider-Verse. No. I'm sorry. Not
well, and the and it's granted, always important to point out, like, yes, it's a Marvel movie, but this is Sony. Like, Sony was running this. This is an MCU thing, which to some degree almost makes it more impressive.
Yes.
Because we haven't seen anybody do something in the Marvel world that's better than what we've gotten from the MCU. And granted, Marvel's like cinematic world hasn't dove into animated films. Like, they have their animated film department, but it's not like the Kevin Feige stuff. But
Sure.
this shit is like, I don't care what, like, if Kevin Feige wants to dip his toe into animation, by all means, I'm on board. But like, you're not gonna touch this. So like, to have Sony do something that was that like out of left field, and just it's the, like, you do hold somewhat of a point. Like, the acting, the performances, the voice performances are great.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they're so good, and they're tailored. The characters are tailored so much to the actors. I like to dream sometimes because dreaming is fun. There's a world where like you could bring like Haley Steinfeld and Shamik Moore into Tom Holland's live. Like, you could bring the Spider-Verse movies into the live action Spider-Man movies. Like, I think some of the things that Sony is setting up with the Villainverse, specifically like the Spider-Woman stuff that they're building, they are setting up the construct of the, obviously, I mean, they did it just in the Spider-Verse movie, but the fact that there is this multiple universe world, and if they start to connect these and they start crossing over the human and the cartoon elements, I will, like, if you bring Tom Holland into Spider-Verse 2, that's how you fucking, like, you do better than the last one. You know what I mean?
I never even thought of that.
Like, you could,
who framed Roger Rabbit kind of thing. I think I know where you're going.
No, but you could take Tom Holland, and if he goes to the Spider-Verse world, you turn him into a cartoon.
Oh, okay.
And the fact that Shamik Moore and Haley Steinfeld and Josh Johnson look very much like their characters, you could take Miles,
I understand. Okay, yeah.
and Gwen and bring them in and have those three play those characters in the real life world. Like, I dream big, Mike. I'm a crazy hugger. And you know what? Sony should dream big, because if you pulled off something like that,
but Into the Spider-Verse, and that's a blueprint of how you are supposed to world build.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a single movie, and you introduce people, you introduce characters. You did the Spider-Ham. You did this character, and everyone just fits perfectly. And that's how you world build. There wasn't this one obscure character. You're like, what the hell is that going? No, everyone fit, and everyone did their job. Everyone was equal. But again, Miles Morales was such a great character.
Dude,
I fell in love with him all over again.
Yeah.
But it didn't diminish any of the other characters.
No, not at all.
You know, Penny might have played a little role. It's fine. But again, it wasn't like she wasn't a bad character. She was there. I was with her, and Spider-Ham and Spider-Man Noir. You know, Nick Cage was perfect for that role.
Who knew that what my life needed was Nick Cage as Spider-Man Noir?
Yeah,
like that might be, and everything in this movie is pitch perfect. That might be like one of the most pitch perfect ideas anybody had. Was like, we're going to do Spider-Man. Somebody called Nick Cage, because all Nick Cage seems to be good at doing at this point in life is that over-the-top crazy shit. And to have him like rein it into like reined in crazy, I was like, oh, it's so good. Perfect. So good. I love Nick Cage. Put him everywhere.
But yeah, that's how you world build. And it's just a blueprint of just perfection. I love that movie. But again, we're talking about the technology, and the technology will always be faster than the actual art, because you're comparing Toy Story 1 to Toy Story 4 and how far it came. And then I went even further into the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah, well,
but yeah, there's so much there's so much competition, but at the same time, it's like we're watching evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And still paying homage to where it came from.
Yeah.
See, when you do 3D animation, people are like, okay, you do 3D animation, you put it on a screen, and there it is. And it takes a very long time. It takes about an average of about like 3 to 4 years to do a whole movie, and you have your own crew. But you don't get 3D animation without doing 2D animation. And that's what people don't understand. People who are not in the field. because you have to design the characters, you have to create the storyboards, you have to do, see how every frame is going to happen.
So the 3D animation process,
sure,
what you're saying, should follow all the animation processes to get you there.
Absolutely, because a lot of people think that 2D animation is the lost art. It's really not. It's become simplified at some aspects. You have the Steven universe, because we're not really drawing on a table much anymore. It's very much computerized. But the process of 3D animation doesn't start at 3D animation. It starts at 2D animation.
Interesting. I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, it starts at 2D animation. But again, that's the behind the scenes kind of aspect. And it's very interesting because the process, it's the same thing, only you're adding 3D animation on it. And, you get your masterpieces of, Toy Story and, whatever, whatnot.
So for you, like when you're building out, say, things for your special secret project that we might or might not talk about later, I don't know, stick around, you'll find out. Do you start pen on paper, or are you drawing your 2D models on computers from the get-go?
A little bit of both. Okay. Now, the secret project we're talking about, there are certain aspects where I've dove in and modeled my 3D animation because but I don't do anything without doing research. Okay. What I mean research is just like, look, I had this idea for a character, and I want them to have this sort of aspect and this sort of aspect and this sort of aspect, and you just go onto the internet and you find your character and you find your, and then you do the sketches and whatnot. And there's some times where I'm like, I'll just throw on and I'll make a 3D model because that's where my mindset is. Nothing is step by step by step. It's not paint by numbers. If you go into Pixar, I'll give you a great example. Years ago, I went to the Pixar exhibit in the Museum of MoMA, or was it Museum of Modern? No, MoMA. Museum
Modern
of
Art.
Modern Art. Yeah, MoMA. Years ago.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Museum of.
So and how they did it was how they don't. It's not a paint by numbers. It's this person does watercolors, okay, and that's what their medium is, and they'll create that character. I'll take, for instance, what's that chick's name from Incredibles? The little oh God.
Anyway,
Edna Mode.
Yeah, Edna
Mode. So she went through an evolution of her character. Some people did her watercolor. Some people did her in. Oh, I shouldn't say did her.
It sounded dirtier than you wanted it to sound.
I know. I was like, try to keep it PG, but made her into certain aspects. But they fed off the strengths of that character, and then you get the character of 3D animation, and then you get what you got. This little bundle of just sassy joy. So it's not.
Who is our director, by the way?
What's that? It was voiced by the director, right?
Yeah, I love that so much.
But again, it's just like you play off a person's, there's certain mediums. It could have been she was sculpted, out of clay. I saw that part too. So it's not paint by numbers, but my personal medium and process is research, sketch, and then throw it up. But again, it could flip and reverse, and I can play with it. And that could be my process one day. It just depends what I'm in the mood of doing.
Now you have like one of those like digital sketch pad things.
Yeah.
I tried to dip my toe into animation once at work. Let me tell you, and look, I'll have to send. I'll send you the link. I'll put the link down in the bio so you guys can see the video that I worked on. It was NBC Sports at the time was doing this like series where it was basically like Ever Wonder, like Ever Wonder how many miles a soccer player runs in a game. Stuff like that. And then you come up with like, these different things, like ever wonder like how the NCAA tournament began. And it would be these things where we would use, usually graphics, sometimes moving images if we had rights to it or whatever. And I want to do this thing on superstitions because I think sports superstitions are really, really interesting because I'm a superstitious person.
Okay.
And I know that I am batshit crazy when it comes to superstition. Like, perfect example, and again, side tangents, I love those here. UConn is on this incredible run with Kemba Walker all the way to the national championship game. First game of the tournament, I watched at home. Second game, and at home, I had a Burger King order. I had a plain double cheeseburger. I think it was like a 10-piece chicken strip, an onion ring, and a large orange soda. Second game, I was out at the bar. Third game, I just happened to be home. That was how it worked the first like 3 games. Well, at that point, I was like, well, now I've got to stick to it. So game 4, I found a bar to be at. Game 5, I was at home. When they got all the way to the night of the championship, I go to Burger King, put my order in because it's an at-home night. And they go, we're out of orange soda. And I was like, you can't be out of orange soda. I have to have the orange, I have to have the orange soda. Otherwise, they're not going to win. Even though me drinking orange soda has no impact on Kemba Walker playing basketball.
Right.
But that's how my brain works. And then I went to the store and I bought orange soda to pour into the cup so that I had the large orange soda. And then they won the national title. And things like that are what drive superstition people to think that they're legit. Because I'm like, no, look, they won the title. If I didn't do it and they lost, I would have blamed myself. I'm that guy. So I'm fascinated by superstitions. So I wanted to do this thing, but we don't, NBC didn't have rights to NBA footage or MLB footage. So it was like, and some of the best superstitions come out of those sports. Like Jason Giambi used to rock a gold thong when he was in a hitting slump. Derek Jeter has worn the thong. Bernie Williams has worn the thong. And it breaks people out of their slumps. So like that was like something I wanted to work on, but we can't touch that.
Right.
So I was like, let me do. We had a guy who had been working with us that was working on animation stuff. I was like, that's cool because nobody really fucked with that. And then he got let go, and I was like, well, now that whole department, like that whole concept, kind of started to die. And I kind of had it. Like I was tight with him, so I was like, you know what? In honor, I'm gonna try this just one time. I have zero artistic ability. To pull off a stick figure is impressive for me. So I was like, how do you do an animated video when I can't draw? So I literally would find pictures and then I would trace that. Like I'd create a new layer in Photoshop and then I would trace it and like create these things. And then I did everything in Avid. I didn't know how to use, oh, it's one of the Adobe programs, but it's the one that like the animation program that Adobe has. Like I didn't know how to use that. So I was like, I'm just going to do all of this in Avid with keyframes.
Okay.
Keyframe animation sucks. So I probably worked for like almost 2 months on just one video. And it's like, it was like, I would build his arm and then I would like just cut his arm here and then build another piece here. So they were like, kind of like those paper marionettes almost to a degree. I thought they looked pretty cool. But wow, like you want to talk about like having a totally different appreciation for animation and like how much, like you said, like you're looking at 2 to 3 years minimum on any animated movie when you're turning it around because of, I mean, I made a 2-minute video and it took me 2 months almost, you know what I mean? Like with no artistic skills or how to do those things. So I don't know why that came up, but it was just like, yeah, I definitely can appreciate the process it takes to get to moving images that aren't real, like you guys have a talent that I wish I could tap into occasionally.
Yeah, it's either you love it or you hate it, and it's a different muscle when you're talking about when you make. I'll give you for example, Steamboat Willie. Okay.
Okay.
That took painstaking frame by frame, picture by picture, hours upon hours just to make this 5 minutes short or whatever, how long it is.
Was that like the flipbook philosophy back then where it's literally, I'm going to draw this image and then the next frame will be this image that I have to redraw and then this one and this one. How that was that? Am I like in the
No,
ballpark
you're
of how
absolutely
that
100%
works?
correct. You were absolutely 100% correct. Dude, give me like 2 seconds. Okay.
Yeah.
Bathroom.
Yeah,
Okay.
go for it. Oh, I'm gonna have to cut you off right there. I know I hate myself for doing it, but you know, I gotta keep the episodes at a decent episode length. We don't want to go much over an hour, and I love creating anticipation for you to come back to the next episode because we got a lot more to do and talk about with Mike as far as animation goes. We even get into just general technology in movies like CGI and just special effects. Really, really fun conversation for you guys to look forward to. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to wait a little bit longer and longer than just me like disappearing for a couple of weeks because I got things going on. This one's actually got to be a delay. Mike actually started not feeling very well while we were talking, so I was like, dude, go take care of yourself. Your health obviously way more important than any of the stuff that we were talking about. So we obviously wish the best for Mike. Hope he feels better, and when he does, he'll come back and we'll finish up the conversation. So you'll get the rest of what we talked about today, as well as what we were going to wrap up the combo with. So there will be another episode with Mike Driscoll. I'm very excited for it, but obviously we want him to feel better before we do such things because it's hard to talk about the fun stuff when you don't feel good. So, our best to Mike. Hope you feel better, buddy. Look forward to episode 2. I promise we will get into it, and you will. I guarantee you will find out what it is that Mike is working on, and it should be really fun and something to get excited about. I'm pumped for him. I think it's really, really cool. So anyway, that's all the Seaman's got to say, man. That is the end of this episode of our Margarita Monday podcast. I would normally finish my margarita, but as you can see, that happened during our conversation. So until next time, next week we will be back with a new episode and a new guest. And like I said, we'll come back and finish up our conversation with Mike. I'm sorry, I gotta leave you guys on pins and needles, waiting to wonder what it is that Mike wants to let us know. But it should be pretty cool. Anywho. That's all I gotta say, man. That's it for this edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down Margarita Monday Meetup in the books with Mr. Mike Driscoll. Look forward to our next conversation with someone brand new next week. And until then, man, well, I guess I want to know what you're thinking. What do you guys think about animation? Where we are with animation? Where we've come? Are you an old school, animation person? Someone that was there like at the very, very beginning. Maybe in the 30s and 40s. Did you just grow up watching all that 2D stuff to 3D? Anything you want to talk about as far as animation goes, even CGI. Because Lion King, the live action remake, that's an animation movie, and that's wild to think about. So if you got anything to say about that stuff, down below in the comments. Look forward to talking to you guys down there. As always, if you enjoyed this episode of our Margarita Monday Meetup, give me and our buddy Mike a thumbs up by hitting that little thumbs up button. And if you're new and you haven't, but you like what we're doing here, you can come join along all the time by jumping over there, man. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the little bell that follows so you can get alerts every time I make a new video and every time we drop a new edition of the Margarita Monday Meetup podcast. But until that time, man, that's all we got for the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. Another Margarita Monday in the books. I've been the Seaman. I'm signing off. Peace.
Well, as I live and breathe, you're still here? Check out a video like this one or this one and hit the subscribe button so you can get alerts and check out everything the Seaman's got at the Cinema Sit Down.